tinfoil speedo on right now. You have been warned. We are speaking with Nathaniel Gillis. He is a demonologist, and the stories that he has are shocking and strange. I mean, we are going to be talking about people who woke up with symbols on their body. We are going to be talking about people who are ancient and able to transfer their consciousness and souls into other bodies. And he believes that these people are what we all would call demons of today and even of biblical times. He is bringing a whole lot to this episode. You are going to be very shocked with what he says, because it's not just that he's a demonologist, he's actually doing further research into his field, and he's going into very much unmarked territory, non-traveled territory where only the thickest, most durable tinfoil speedo will survive. I'm telling you right now. Great guest. Can't wait for you guys to see it. Buckle up. Nathaniel Gillis. All right, guys, I am here with Nathaniel Gillis. Let's get into it. This is one of these that I have been really, really interested in having this conversation with someone in the realm of what you do. I've seen little snippets of your interviews, and we talked briefly, but yeah, I just have a lot of questions. So and I've heard some wild stories, and it's connected some things for me in my life and also what I've seen out in the world. So I can't wait to just get down and get into it. Thank you for coming on to the show, man.
Thank you for having me, sir. It's great to be with you. It's always nice to meet new people in the field and to meet new show hosts and hopefully to make new friends. So thank you for the invitation, Colin. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, you followed me on Instagram, and then I was like, I clicked and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This just fell into my lap here. I'm like, this is exactly the type of person I want to be talking to. Let's not leave them in the dark, though. You would classify yourself as a demonologist, correct?
Perhaps, yes. I am primarily known as a demonologist, although the research I'm doing now is kind of connecting demonology to the larger phenomena of the paranormal. But yeah, the approach that I'm taking is somewhat informed by demonology. There's a lot to unpack there, but you are essentially correct.
Beautiful. I wanna get into it. I've heard one of the stories that you told, but I don't want to just jump into that quite yet.
Yeah.
I want to know what is it that you do? So like now you're doing certain research. As a demonologist, what does a demonologist do? Is it just the study of demons, or are you interacting with them in an exorcist type of way?
I am not an exorcist. I am a researcher. So I research what's called demonological theory. And
Okay.
so I'm more along the lines of the person that goes into the haunted house, goes into the exorcism, and even poltergeist cases where I just essentially sit down with the phenomenon, record anything I can, and observe any and all behavioral patterns. And
Wow.
that's why I first started out in demonology, thinking, okay, this is where I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to be for the extended period of my career. Then after being in the field for a certain amount of time, I realized, oh my God, I'm studying something completely different or something that's masquerading as demonic. And it kind of evolved into my work now, which is Necronetics, the self-replication of a species. So that's what I do. I'm a behavioral pattern finder, if to kind of simplify it. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm all about. And thankfully, the research I have been doing lately has kind of bloomed into a unified field theory, to where the theory I'm proposing today with you and everybody is that we're dealing with the singular intelligence that is in fact masquerading as various archetypes so as to be present with but absent from us. We only see what it wants us to see. And at the end of the day, that's why we have to look for the bloody footprints in the snow, right? They're using aliases as archetypes and archetypes as aliases, but there is a common pathology underneath all of the phenomena. And I'm sure we'll get to that here soon.
Okay, so then when you say different aliases, are you also
Mhm.
speaking about like different avatars when you're talking about one singular intelligence and
Yes,
then
absolutely.
masquerading as multiple things? So what would be those avatars that we would know in our regular life?
So it's the classic Jungian archetypes. Of course, you'll have the siren, you'll have the lover, you'll have the incubus, you'll have the guide who, oh, Colin, I'm your best friend, right? Come and talk to me through a Ouija board or a seance, the deceased ancestor, even the ghost. And I do believe the evidence suggests that we aren't dealing with separate species. We're dealing with one phenomenon, and that uses these archetypes as initiatory practices. Once you get through one archetype, you are initiated to another one, and then
Mm,
to another one. And so by the time you have evolved through all of the archetypes, the phenomenon has created a portal between you and it, and now something else that is unquantifiable, by the way,
hmm.
begins to manifest and incarnate in our reality. And so that's what the cases, at least the research I've done, implicates. But whatever we're dealing with transcends space time. It not only can control portions of reality, but it can control our perception of reality as well. And so, somewhere between those events of the phenomenon controlling reality and controlling our perception of reality, the research is in between. And we're trying to understand, right, what's actually going on. And so, my research has led me to, I guess, abandon the extraterrestrial hypothesis and to lean more into uh, the fact that there is a species here on the earth that is unquantifiable. It's not extraterrestrial. It's more like John Keel's ultra terrestrial model, where it's
Mm.
here. It's
Yes.
here. And at times it will incarnate, it will adjust timelines, it will manipulate history. And that's where I'm sitting with the question currently. But yeah, the research I and others have been doing, it's more about reality and our interpretation of it and their ability to replicate it. And it's uncomfortable, right? These are not conversations I'd want to have about the phenomenon, right? I'd much rather that we would be dealing with horns and hooves to where, you do 2 vials of holy water, call me in the morning, the kind of the office episode with Michael Scott, not to be, a comedy fan, right? But take two of these, call me in the morning. He told me that. Um, that's what we're really dealing with. And so I think some of the deepest research now, that's really what we're researching. It's far less to do with extraterrestrials. It's something here, and there are occult aspects to it that are it's religious cross cultural. So what that means is we can go to Haiti, we can go to Germany, we can go to Italy, we can go to Texas. The sigils that we're finding on experiences are the same. So what are we actually dealing with? Again, it points more towards a species of occult practitioner.
Oh, you froze for a second. You said it points more
Did I?
towards, yeah,
Uh-oh,
yeah.
a species of
Okay.
occult practitioner. And
Okay.
demonologists in history still try to understand that. They could not wrap their mind around it. Are these entities or incorporeal? Are they just spirits? Are they apparitions?
Hmm.
And it's not just demonologists that had to wrestle with that question. People like, uh, who was it? Bud Hopkins and John Mack and all of these abductionists. They're researching abduction accounts of these entities. They were asked, like, okay, they have bodies? Are they corporeal? Are they physical? And Bud Hopkins in one of his lectures said most of the time.
Hmm.
So how do you quantify that exactly? And this kind of splits demonology down the middle again to where are demon spirits? If they are spirits, then we have another significant issue with demonology because we have experiencers with secretions left on their bodies. Spirits cannot
Well,
secrete.
let's not go too far. Let's stay into like I like to just you said a whole
Oh yeah,
lot. Let's not just
yeah,
so sirens, lover, incubus. Would this
yep,
now translate in today's language of like grays, UFOs,
absolutely.
UAPs? It's like that type of thing. It's almost like there was certain language for it back in the 1200s, let's say, and there's
Mhm.
different language for it today.
Yes, and the late Kenneth Grant, he was the heir to Thelema. He articulated this. And in one quote, he kind of demolished all of our models of the phenomenon and said, yes, in times past, whatever this is, whatever these species are, whatever they are, they interacted with us as deities, divinity, demigods, right? The gods of antiquity. And through history, we evolved to no longer are they praying to the divine. Now there's a movement in the field, I guess, that is now praying to NHI.
Hmm.
So it's changing archetypes, right? And so that's when you start to realize that whatever these interface events represent, like for instance, I've had cases where the guide archetype is employed, and it turned out to be some kind of species of sorcerers, where the guide was just the mask they wore during the interface event. And at the time of the phenomenon's choosing, the mask came off, and the individual realized I was manipulated by an archetype. Now, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I finished an episode recently where I was talking about how psychics, people who claim that they have a spirit guide, maybe they have an
Yeah.
animal spirit around them, etc. A lot of times those things are masquerading as those loved
Absolutely.
ones, as those. So this is like the same process. Now, what I was saying in my video, not having all the
Mhm,
understanding that you have, but in my language, I was calling it that they are being deceived by something that is demonic.
mhm,
You're saying that they're just being deceived by a singular intelligence, correct?
mhm. That is correct. That early on was confused as demonic, and there are reasons for that. Now, what do I mean by that? I do not mean that these entities are love and light, right?
Okay.
I do mean that what they're doing is they are deceiving the masses. There is, and I don't know which direction or how deep rather you want me to go in this, but there's a reason why researchers, even specifically demonology, saw them as demonic, right? And even like today, I've interviewed people, experiencers, where even the demonic that they're witnessing is not based upon literacy or anything in history. It's literally the phenomenon creating the archetype based upon pop culture. What new movie have you seen? Is that what you saw as a demon? Absolutely. So it's literally playing a role in our midst. And there have been times where, like specifically in malevolent hauntings, where researchers go in and they try to interface with this entity as if it is demonic,
Mhm.
right? Again, let's call the priest in. Here's some holy water. And they've watched, like I know of one case from a friend of mine's case that it's wild, but it's true, where they decided to call an exorcist in from the Catholic Church. It took a while for him to actually get to this home. He had to go through a series of stages and just of I guess permission. And once he got there, they said, "Okay, what are you going to do, sir?" He goes, "Well, where's the most active room in the house?" And they showed him. And he said, "Okay." He brings a vial of holy water, places it in the middle of the room, and watched as the entity siphoned it all the way down to nothing, and then just went on about its business in the home.
Mhm.
So there are cases where, again, that archetype is manifested. And early on in my career, I first noticed this in incubi literature, where the phenomenon was tailoring the interface event, not just according to the belief system of the experiencer, but even down to their neurology, to where it was tailored to their brain. And Dr. Gary
Uh,
Nolan, right? And so we have to understand that not everything that we see is real, number one, and not everything we see can be trusted. And so once you've done a certain amount of research, you'll see the guide cannot be trusted. The ghost certainly can't be trusted. And then we go to even the extraterrestrial, and it's like, well, why? What makes us think we should trust them either? And here's why: it's because they told us to, right, Colin? Well, of course I'm that. You should trust me. It's like, well, wait a minute, wait, because you told me. That's why I have to. Well, of course. And
mhm.
that's why I and others are kind of done with all the archetypes. So we're looking at the bloody what's called the pathology in academia. What's
Mhm.
pathology? And that's where we really discovered maybe we're not dealing with any of them. We're dealing with
So
something else.
so then when it does, like, I'm sure you've heard stories. I mean, you said I believe
Yeah.
your father was a pastor.
He is,
You guys
absolutely,
are
yeah.
you're dealing with things, and so when they do things that are violent, or what we
Mhm.
categorize as evil, then what is that? Because we classify that as demonic. Like, I'm a Christian,
Yeah,
like, we classify as demonic, but then
yeah.
how are you looking at that when they do things like that?
Well, I think there's a difference between classification and saying, okay, that is a demonic act, and actually source. Where
Mhm.
does that entity come from? What is the nature? What is the substance? That's when we get into demonology. Is it incorporeal? Or does it have a body? What is it? And so, yeah, of course, there are many things that are demonic in description, but what is that? Right? What has that been throughout history? And what were the earliest theories regarding these entities? And so, yeah, they do obviously do evil acts, and we can get into that here in a little bit.
Mhm.
So, my current model of the phenomenon is yes, there are times when the phenomenon is demonic, right? It does perform rituals on people, it does want altars through and through. The problem is, even in Jewish demonology, the Nephilim theory, the Rephaim theory, those researchers still have a hard time quantifying what they actually believe. Number one, if they're Nephilim, the fathers, the fallen angels, are in the ocean in chains, in
Mhm.
darkness,
Mhm.
right? And then the Nephil, like the fallen ones, right? Okay, so they had progeny, and now these entities are wandering spirits in the earth.
Yes.
That's what the theory is. Now,
Yes.
okay, that has a lot of issues. And so that's where demonology started. And I do believe 100% that there was a time when they knew what they saw. They just didn't understand the capabilities of the phenomenon. And so that's why in demonology, some people said this is an entity of an unknown, specificity, species. And others said it's okay, it's a demon. And then we go down the lines of, okay, what is a demon? What are their capabilities? Is it a demon according to which Abrahamic religion? Is it jinn? Is it Nephilim? Right? What are we actually dealing with? And the problem with the field now is that research is not being done to the extent that it needs to. Because when people say, okay, Nathaniel's a demonologist, they lump me in with Ed Lorraine Warren or somebody that that is Catholic, not realizing this research goes infinitely deeper. Not to discount them, of course, but to say, hey, listen, we got to sit with the question in a way that's intellectually honest. And there are reasons why I've kind of differed sense, right? That there is possibly something else here that is
Mhm.
unquantifiable at this point in history. And thankfully, in my research, I've been able to look at parapsychology, ontology, you have all of it, and kind of create this unified field theory to say, okay, well, maybe that's one way to look at it, as if it's one intelligence.
So then, we're talking about it not being quantifiable.
Mhm,
But it's not completely, I guess in a way it is indescribable, but also there is many descriptions that go along with it based on
mhm,
what people see, what they encounter, what they feel, things of that
yeah.
nature. So back in, we'll just say back in the day, like we were talking about, like biblical times, whatever you
Mhm,
want to call that time of the past, they did have g- pretty good descriptions of what these things were. I was just talking to a Muslim man about it
mhm,
recently, my last interview. He was telling me about the jinn. Since I'm a Christian, I
mhm,
don't know much about the
mhm.
jinn, so I wanted to learn
Yeah.
about that. And he was breaking down what the jinn are capable of, and it differed a tiny bit
Yeah.
from Christian and what they believe. It differed a tiny bit because I am very well versed with Judaism,
Mhm,
because grew up in a Orthodox Jewish neighborhood.
mhm.
So I had a lot of friends. And they would tell me about this stuff, and there's some of them that would be like, "And you're a part of that."
Yes, yeah, yeah. Wait a minute.
I'd be like, "Hold on a second." Yeah. So it differs a little bit from place to
Mhm,
place, and then I guess, yeah, I would agree with you. I guess it would differ quite a bit from Nephilim, but
mhm.
they all are, I guess I'll just use the word quantifying it. I should say describing it very similarly. Are
Describing it, absolutely.
so yeah, so are they describing the same thing? Or in your mind, in your theory, in your research as you go deeper, are
Mhm.
you finding that they're actually describing something different, each of them?
I think that there are footnotes within their demonologies that agree with each other. There is no Nephilim text that says that they are made of smokeless fire.
Hmm.
S-
Definitely.
Vice versa, right? There is no, there's no Jinn grimoire that talks about them like creating hybrids in the earth. They have their own progeny.
Hmm.
Not so there's this again, this mythology behind it all. It's only since I've been working with Steve Mayer and Barry Fitzgerald, which are other researchers, they're parapsychologists, that we started realizing that mm, maybe we can't trust what we see at all.
Hmm.
I mean, I'll refer to their research for a quick second, where they were dealing with where the phenomenon incarnated. So they were dealing with CE5 practitioners,
Ah, I want to talk about that
which
too.
I won't picture. I promise, Colin, I won't. But I just want to drop this bomb real quick, so to help people understand. Like, wait a hot second, maybe we need to back up here and look at it differently. Where uh they realized, okay, so in demonology, we knew like when the phenomenon manifests, it'll induce people into dreamlike states. They were called dream demons. And not only that, but we also knew that in the case studies throughout all of demonology, that when the experiencers are interfacing with this entity, it's not just manifesting to them or manifest through them. To where I know you're not my deceased ancestor. I know that intellectually, but you're now manipulating my emotions so that
Mhm.
I will agree with the image you're manifesting as. So it manifests to, it manifests through. It's self confirming. And in some possession cases, it is self seeing as well. So we've seen that. We didn't have any proof. They did, right? Okay, you read these grimoires. Okay, it makes sense. You read these case studies. Okay, that's interesting. But what happened is, because it's the same phenomenon, it will demonstrate certain mechanisms that are actually quantifiable. You can record them, monitor them, write them down, and say, okay, we know that about the phenomenon. Let's apply that mechanism to what we know now. And you start to see the pathology manifesting. So, sure enough, knowing the phenomenon has the ability to influence our perception of it.
Mm.
So, Steve and Barry were doing experiments with CE5 practitioners. They went out to an undisclosed location. They said, okay, go through Stephen Greer's process, go through the steps. And they did it successfully. Phenomenon incarnates above their head.
So
Now,
just for anybody
yeah.
listening, C5, these people
Mhm.
are basically summoning UFOs via psychic abilities.
Yes,
If I'm
self-initiated contact,
yes, yes.
not self-initiated. That's just me on my little soapbox here.
Mhm,
Um, but yeah, here's the problem, though, is that they had placed a brainwave monitoring unit
mhm.
upon this individual's head, and they're watching in real time how the phenomenon's interfacing with this experiencer. And this experiencer, okay, here's the phenomenon. Okay, I guess she went through all the process, Stephen Greer, CE5, all of it, all the initiations, I should say. Next thing you know, they're watching and they're timing it. They're looking at the brainwave activity call and they're timing it. And within 20 seconds, that it induced that experiencer into theta brainwave activity, which is
Mhm.
trance,
Yes.
dreamlike, stupor, all of it. It had created within 20 seconds, had created a connection between it and the experiencer. And we've seen this. And so my point, even with Gary Nolan's research, where he had a case study of a boy, actually not a young man, a boy, who was in a car, he was in France, and he's a witness of a UAP. He's looking up to the sunroof and sees this thing hovering above his car. Now, here again, he sees it. He begins to articulate to the best of his ability what he's seeing. The mother then pulls out an iPhone, I think it was. It took a picture, right? It's 2024, 2025. We have good cameras now. Takes a picture of it and compared it to the description the son gave. Completely different objects.
Mm.
So we can't trust, many times, we can't trust what we see. Again, this is why in demonology you would have cases of deceased ancestors manifesting. They would play that role up until the phenomenon's choosing, and the mask would come off, and you would see that that was just an archetype designed to moderate the behavior of the experiencer.
To
We've seen
moderate
that
the
before.
behavior. For what
Yes.
purpose?
To basically to make sure they go along with the plan. So, for instance, okay, so early demonology, we had cases where okay, it's a deceased husband, right? And I've
Yeah.
had cases like this even in my career, where they would copulate with women as the deceased lover or as the husband.
Oh,
I had right. This is crazy stuff. Really, it is. You
I've
start to
I've
see
had
it
dreams
start.
like
Yes, yes. I've had a case. Now check this out. This is wild stuff, but this goes to show you how far they're willing to go. I have a good friend of mine who uh it's weird because a lot of people get in the field and you never know their origin stories.
oh, you froze for a second here.
Did I? How?
Oh,
My internet's good.
and you popped out.
How? You froze now. Uh-oh. What's going on, buddy? We good?
Yeah, we're back. We're back.
That is
So
weird, man. I'm at all my okay. So my
when we
friend,
talk about stuff like
yeah.
this, things like this tend to happen.
Oh, I've done 4 hour shows and it didn't go live and never recorded.
Yep.
So my friend, because people get in this field and you never know their origin stories. You just know that they're doing research and stuff. He told me of a story that happened to him. He's like, yeah, he goes, I had dated a
This
girl,
is something. This never happens. So he just
and my
I'm blipping out. That's the weirdest part. That doesn't make any sense. It never happens with me.
uh-oh.
Okay, you're back. You're back. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back, brother. Oh
Man, I'm
no.
so sorry about that. I can't tell which side is what. I usually I'm even gonna turn off my Wi-Fi over here.
I'll turn
Uh,
off mine too, brother. Let me see here, man.
I'm gonna tell my wife to do the same.
Where's my Wi-Fi at? There we go.
Let's go ahead.
Okay. So my friend's like, Nathaniel, he goes, I haven't shared the story with anybody. He's like, so if you share it, don't tell anybody my name. So I'm not. But
Mm.
he had broken up with a girlfriend. They were almost engaged. It didn't work out. And he broke up with her and moved across town, changed his phone number, got a different job. And about a year later, he gets home from work, and he's turning on the news, just kind of, just chill out, put some peaches on, relax. Somebody knocks on his door. It's like, man, this is like 1 in the morning. What's going on? Opens the door. It's that ex-girlfriend. She stays the night, or kind of. In the middle of the night, he wakes up and she's gone. There's no evidence that she was there at all.
Oh man. I
So
already got chills as soon as he said that. Oh no.
we're gonna. That's like the least of the cases, brother. I'm telling you, a lot of this stuff is really dark. So the next day he goes to work, but there's just this weird lingering feeling that he has. And finally he gets the nerve. He's like, you know what? None of this makes sense. He's put two and two together. There was no evidence she was even there. They copulated, like he has that memory.
Yeah.
There's no physical evidence. And so the next day, when he gets off of work, he's like talking. He texts a friend, like, "Hey, by the way, I know I shouldn't be doing this, and it's not because I'm trying to get back together or anything. I'm just trying to figure out." He starts. Did I freeze again?
Yeah, for a second. Keep going, keep
Oh
going.
that's weird. So,
Yeah.
long story short, he gets a hold of her. Like he texts a friend who texts a friend who gets her new number and all that, and he calls her. He's like, "Listen, I just want to know like what happened." And she's like, "Well, what do you mean what happened?" "Well, you came over last night and then you left abruptly and the bed was made, like that part of the bed was made, and it was like you weren't even there. Number one, how did you know where I live?" And she goes ballistic on him. Ballistic. "I'm with somebody. You know that. I'm happy now. I have no idea what you're talking about. I
Oh
wasn't
man.
even in Colin, I wasn't even in town, and you're out of your mind and stop calling me." Click.
Oh,
So
oh man.
this is some of the ancient manifestations of the phenomenon. I mean, I have cases behind me in my library where the phenomenon had abducted the wife and replaced her with the familiar spirit. The husband wakes up in the middle of the night, looks over, thinks it's his wife underneath the blankets. It's the phenomenon. It looked
Wow.
like her. It's not her. And so the implications, though, kind of broadens the feels okay. How much of reality can it replicate? Forget about the archetypes, Colin, right? What
Mhm.
are we actually dealing with here? Is it okay? Demonology can only go as far in the theory. It goes as far as saying it can manipulate our perception of reality. That's
Mhm.
it. That's it. And there's hybridism as well wrapped into it. But whatever we're dealing with is a lot more complicated than that, unfortunately. So,
Wow. Wow. What a story. That is one of those chilling things. Because
yeah,
that's kind of like what they talk about with skinwalkers.
of
They like
course.
impersonate a dog or impersonate this, impersonate that. And
Mhm,
oh man. And it's very interesting that you bring this up too, because I've been talking for the past few months. I've been talking about the connection between I see it in tech, definitely
mhm,
see it in politics. I mean, there was a prime minister that was communicating with his mom and his dead dog for 20 years he was in office in Canada. I mean,
mhm.
like I have to do an episode on him. But there's a connection with tech, and it seems like politics. It seems the Hollywood industry, the whole movie industry. There is this connection that they all try to tap into this unseen realm,
Yeah,
and I don't think this realm is just filled with energy. I think there's actually things there, a species there, as I'm talking
right.
to you to describe it the way that you would, a species that is there that they
Mhm.
do communicate with, and they can acquire. I think it even gets to the point where when they're talking about these UAPs that are crashed and they're talking about donations, I think
Mhm.
it can even get to that point where they're bringing in physical objects through this
Of
whole thing.
course,
It, it
yes.
really, it really seems like they're trying, and occultists as well, of course, because all of it, in my mind, a lot of it is done through occult ritual,
Mhm.
and yeah, it seems like there is this unseen realm. These entities are in it,
Yeah,
and maybe it's to the point where when you're talking about somebody being replicated, a whole person,
yeah,
you know, we think of it as just like this ethereal, smoky realm, but
mhm.
perhaps it's a realm of great technology as well. If it is right alongside us, just we can't see it.
Yes, it's right here. Yeah, and
Mhm,
I try to tell people, "Okay, it's over there." No, 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 no. It's
mhm.
here.
Yes.
And the research get very deep very quickly. But you're exactly right. And that's why I'm now looking at their pathologies. What do they want? What do they
Yeah.
demand? And forget about, okay, here's my tradition. Okay, okay, let's sit down and let's say, all right, what does it want? You know, I lectured in England last year, and what was astonishing was I when I first got to the hotel, I sit down in the hotel restaurant. I have a cappuccino in my hand, and one of the leading parapsychologists in the world, one of the guys that flew me out there, first thing out of his mouth was, Nathaniel, they want worship.
Mm.
I said, what? They want worship. So whatever we're dealing with, and I don't know how much time we have today, but here's the base note of it all.
As much time as
For-
you want, to be
Okay,
honest.
forget about all of the archetypes. Forget about all the archetypes. I've had okay. Uh, I was working on a case that Dr. Carla Turner was working on before she passed. She's an abductionist, one of the leading members of the field at one point. Even now, if she was alive, she'd still dominate. Um, but before she had passed, she was in the domain of demonology and even was having cases of jinn. It seemed like jinn were present. So what happened was she lived in an area where it was her family that was being taken. Other abductees locally within her neighborhood, mostly women, all women basically, were all being taken. And said they would meet at one house and just kind of unload, and vent to each other. Like, I don't know what's going on. They did A, B, and C. But before she died, she was kind of leaning more towards the occult, more towards Jinn and demonology.
Hmm.
And there were reasons for that. And that is because and I don't know if this is okay because I don't know which direction you want to go. So, and if you've ever seen my interviews, I can go anywhere. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure I'm tailoring everything for you, buddy.
Yeah.
But she realized that, yeah, there are people that when they're interfacing with the phenomenon, they perceive aliens, extraterrestrials.
Hmm.
Now, one of these cases, again, the one that I was working on after her death, same family, where the mother is sleeping on the couch in the living room. The father and the son are watching TV. Out of the corner of their eye, they see this biofield, a plasma field, a cloud
Okay.
moving through the hallway. It slowly moves over and descends down upon the sleeping mother. She wakes up about 45 minutes to an hour later. She says, I was just abducted by extraterrestrials and aliens. They took me. They said, you never left. We were here watching you. There was paranormal activity. Something did take place, but they didn't take your body. Something else is going on. It's at that point that they're looking at her body and they realize that something had carved sigils into her, quote, from head to toe.
So what in your mind took place? Was it that they took the ethereal body, the spirits, quote unquote? Um, did they take
Mhm.
that, and that's why they saw her body there? She probably has a story of waking up and being like, "Oh, what's going
Yeah.
on?" and being fully awake. Is that what happened? Kind of like an astral projection type of thing?
There's evidence of that too, and I've had a case of that actually happening, which we'll get into here in a second.
Mhm.
I'm more of a kin. Again, this is more local than it is extraterrestrial. Is that she was performed upon by an occultist practitioner. I'll give you a reason why I think that. This is part of the Collins elite research, by the way, but I'm kind of extending that model to a degree. Uh, in the 1970s, the USSR were trying to reconstruct and redesign their parapsychology and their parapsychological work. So they were trying to contact the phenomenon, mainly trying to study the ability of the human mind and human consciousness. So what they did is they took a practitioner of the occult, an adept, initiate, placed them within a controlled laboratory, placed a blank piece of photograph paper inside an envelope, strapped it upon their head. They said, okay, from left to right, we want you to project your consciousness onto this envelope. We want you to sigilize the piece of paper from
Mhm.
left to right. First sigil, first symbol is this, right? They went through 6 or 7. Okay. The controls are off, lights are on. Let's see if the ritual was successful. They pulled the piece of paper out, and sure enough, sigils were on the piece of paper.
Now, I just for anybody watching, because we're
Mhm.
using some terminology they might not be versed with.
That's fun.
I had an interview with a witch. He
Mhm.
says that he's a witch. He's I'm not just like calling him names here. He
Don't
was
beat that stuff. Thank God, Colin. I appreciate that. That
he
witch.
he explained the sigil as just a symbol. He was like,
Yeah.
he was like, it's just a symbol. It's just something that represents something that you're trying to manifest into the real world. Now, what is your explanation of a sigil?
So it goes deeper than that, unfortunately.
Hmm.
It's not just symbology, it's not just a symbol, but it has been weaponized with the intent of the practitioner. So it's designed to manipulate reality or to bring about a certain outcome predetermined. I want this to happen. I'm going to carve this symbol. I'm going to charge it with my intention.
Hmm.
And that sigil, right, once activated, and we'll get to that in a second. Once I get done with that case study, once activated, it'll go through 3 stages. And then at the successful completion of my ritual, my intention, it will do what I want it to do in the life of that individual.
Wow.
Now, here's what's important, Colin. Demons don't do that.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
is uncomfortable for me because this again. Remember what I told you early on the show, where early on in demonology, right? They came to a fork on the road and said, wait a minute, is this a practitioner, a species thereof, Or is this the demonic? And it got to a point, even when the church fathers said that there are occultists that can actually perform enough rituals to be lumped in with the demonic once they die. And so that's why it's kind of like, okay, what are we dealing with here? But getting back to the USSR and their parapsychology, they said, okay, we know what you can do when the envelope's strapped to your forehead, but let's place distance between you and the envelope. And here's when things really get crazy, Colin. It's like, what? Okay, here's 20 feet. You're here. The envelope is 20 feet away. Lights off, controls on. Let's see what's going on.
Who's running this study, by the way?
This is the USSR, their parapsychology group.
Okay.
So they have a dude. They're sorry. I said, dude. My apologies, Colin. No disrespect. You're pretty cool. You're very cool, and I kind of just I feel very comfortable. So I apologize.
Yeah,
I apologize. Which is a good thing, by the way.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, their parapsychology work was some of the best, if not the best. You know, they had no parameters, no controls. They were like, okay, whatever, I can do whatever I want, and they started getting results, which even today, our parapsychological programs are still trying to replicate. So, anyway, so they put 20 feet in between the practitioner and the envelope. So, okay, do your ritual. We want you to sigilize, which, by the way, is an occult term. I didn't make it up. People accuse me of that, like sigilize. And the individual goes through the ritual. At the end of the experiment, they go back and look at the footage and everything, right? Okay, let's see what happened. In the middle of the practitioner and the envelope, a biofield manifested.
Okay.
A cloud. Balls of light were inside this cloud of energy, and this energy is traveling from the practitioner over to the envelope. And just like the experiencer I mentioned, it descends down upon the envelope. After the experiment, they pulled the envelope out, and from left to right, there were symbols on it. Fast forward, right? That was in the 70s. Now let's go to the 90s, and we have this particular experiencer who believes she was abducted by extraterrestrials. The problem is she had been sigilized. A ritual had been performed upon her, air quotes, by an alleged extraterrestrial. This is why I say we can't believe everything we see in terms of entities. Because whatever this was had carved sigils into her body, and they were Theban. Now, Nathaniel, what are Theban? What's Theban? Okay, that is it's witch script is what it's essentially called. It's sigils. Okay, it's in the medieval period, from the medieval period, but it's sigils. They're sigils. Now, what's crazy about this is that the way sigils are working with respect to the body and the phenomenon, they are changing the physiology of the skin they're carved into. So it's not just like let's say if I did it, which I'm not a practitioner, but let's say if somebody like me did it, there would be no way, right, for me to change the physiology of the skin if I just drew iconography on it, right? It would just be, okay, that's a nice symbol, Nathaniel, whatever. Whatever they're doing, it's changing the physiology and the skin cells of the body they're writing into. Now, I thought about this. I said, okay, Nathaniel, there's a deeper pathology at play here. Something really deep and dark is going on. So I started doing lectures on skin anomalies, and soon enough, I got an email from an individual whose father was a remote viewer. Now, these are separate fields of research, by the way, right? Separate fields of research. Should be, right? Should be. One's abduction, one, and then one's one's extraterrestrial. Next thing you know, you've got sigils on the body. What's actually going on? So that's when I got an email from an individual. He's like, Nathaniel, I've got to talk to you. So we hop on a phone call and we're talking. And he goes, I got to send you all the evidence, just so you know I'm not just lying. I said, okay. So he said, he goes, my father was a famous remote viewer. That's a whole different field. Wait a minute, what's going on? My ears were perked. I'm like, okay, there's something deeper at play. So he goes, yeah, my father was a famous remote viewer. He was going in and out of his body. And he would meet with his guides. I mean, if we just wrote all the fields down that we're talking about now, it'd be like, okay, there's something wrong. He's like, with his guides, and he's like, he's interfacing with these entities, and in times past, they would give him prophecies. They would give him insights, and so his father would get back into his body. He'd call like a local celebrity or a local politician and say, listen, you need to kind of poll and focus on this demography, whatever, all that. Don't, he kind of gave them insights in their careers, and they would pay him thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, he goes, now my dad is back upstairs. He's like, I'm playing video games. My dad's upstairs. He goes into one of his daily sessions. He's about 30 minutes later. He's like, my dad is stumbling down the stairs, holding his chest. He's weeping. He's inconsolable. He's white as a ghost. And he said, now at the thing, he goes, my dad is a veteran. He's like the toughest man I've ever met in my life. He said, family members have died. He's never cried in his life. Like, I've never seen him cry like this. But his dad was terrified. And so his dad's trying to communicate to his son. Next thing you know, his dad has a massive heart attack. He's
Wow.
on the ground. They call the EMS. And as they're pulling his shirt up, trying to get it off, and I have photographic evidence of this, where they're pulling the shirt up, and as they are, underneath the skin, subdermal sigils were
Mm.
slowly moving themselves to the surface. Once they got to the surface, they were more like burns, but initially they were occurring from underneath the skin.
So what's going on here? You're thinking that there are practitioners out there with very
Absolutely.
terrible intentions, and they're doing this to people.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Under the guise of, again, extraterrestrials.
Mm.
Now, and just to be very transparent, this is why it's okay, demonic or practitioner. Demons don't use sigils, practitioners do. So, and what kind of a practitioner, this is where it's hard to quantify, at least from my perspective. What kind of a practitioner could sigilize someone out of body?
Well, it would be somebody very, very powerful.
Uh-huh. Somewhere out there. And this is why the Colin's elite, people always confuse this in the field. I've heard it over and over again, and it's kind of tiresome for me, where they're like, well, the Colin's elite were, for those who don't know, let me kind of preface what I'm going to say with this. The Colin's elite were a group of physicists within the Department of Defense. They were looking at all of the occult connections to ufology. In their research, they concluded that whatever we're dealing with is a species, number one. Number two, exists outside of space-time, somewhere in the afterlife, and that they were performing rituals on people. Now, people will project, oh, that's religious fundamentalism. Absolutely not. What their conclusion was that it wasn't the devil, it wasn't the demon, and it wasn't the damned, but something exists out there, outside of space-time. And this is the kind of research I and others are doing. But the body, again, these bodies of the experiencers, they're going through stages of sigilization. And there are three. Now, this primarily comes from the occultist Austin Osman Spar. He was I guess, the godfather of sigilization, and even came up with the term
Austin
sigilization.
Oswald?
Austin Osman, Osman,
Mm.
and then Spare.
Okay.
Where this is crazy, but he said, okay, working with sigils in the body, there are three stages. Once the sigil is on the body, the body will absorb the sigil. That's one stage. It will activate them. That's the second. And then at the fulfillment of the ritual, the body will purge them.
Hmm.
So with these experiencers, and I've had cases like this, others I'm working with have as well, where they are claiming, again, interface event. I thought I was taken by guides, right? It's the archetype. What's actually going on? I was taken by extraterrestrials. Okay, that's fine. Let's sit with the question, and I want to know what happened. And what we're finding is that the same entities that were sigilizing people in antiquity The same incubi entities that were sigilizing hybrid mothers are now sigilizing UFO abductees. And many times, gets really dark very quickly, but we got to go there. It's underneath the eyelids, it's inside the mouth, on the cheek. We've
Hmm.
had to sit them down and place ultraviolet light on them, and they will swear to you it's extraterrestrial and have Theban iconography on their body.
Huh. That's
Now,
interesting. A lot of celebrities
fascinating.
get those tattoos in those places.
Oh, I have a good friend who's a doctor of divinity. She had to sign an NDA because there was an artist who, this is another crazy story, right? But she was called to a five-star hotel. You know, you're a doctor of divinity. We need your help. So, okay, what do you need? Well, you need to sign this NDA first. Okay, sign the NDA, right, to keep this individual's identity disclosed, right? Okay,
Mhm.
or not disclosed, but hidden. She gets in there, and the individual goes, "I need your help. What's going on?" Well, I performed a ritual in order to get a song. It was a big hit. She goes, "Well, why do you need my help?" And he pulled back his shirt and said, "I don't know what these symbols are on my back."
Mm.
That's what they're doing in many cases. And so, yeah, a lot of these people don't even know they exist until you put an ultraviolet light and you see. Now, my point again is this, that there has been an intentional effort on the part of ufology to obfuscate this fact. If you, for instance, if you're an experiencer and you're trying to report your encounter with the phenomenon to a certain organization, there's no room for sigils. There would be maybe, oh, symbols. They're symbols. Okay, they're symbols. But the truth is, it's obfuscated, obfuscated rather. And so that's why I and others are kind of sitting here going, okay, like we, regardless of our backgrounds, I mean, a lot of people I work with are atheists, Colin. They don't
I
believe in
bet.
this stuff, right?
I bet.
And
Yeah.
yet we're still sitting down going, uh-oh, there's something deeper going on.
Mm.
And again, I do lean on some of ufology and demonology to inform my model of the phenomenon. And what I'm discovering more than anything else is that, yeah, there is an underlying pathology present. The ufology, again, it's the same thing. And I can kind of go into that direction if you would like me to.
Man, there's a whole lot there. There's so much there. Wow. I mean, even I guess, and it touches on all the questions that I've had, but
Mhm.
right where we just were, I guess this kind of aligns, right? You're talking about this person who had a hit song. They don't know what these
Yep.
symbols are on their body.
Yep.
And then you also talk about them demanding worship.
Mhm.
Now I also came to this conclusion, but again, I'm using my language. You're going deeper, so you're looking at it a little differently or different language. But I was talking about how it seems like a lot of people in Hollywood and entertainment, it's almost like they have an agreement with
Mhm.
whatever this species is. Again,
Yeah.
through occult rituals, accessing them, gaining great knowledge, gaining great talent through them as well,
Right.
constantly as they progress in their career, getting riddled with symbols. I mean, just constantly. I mean, it's all tattoos, but you never really look
Mhm.
deep into what the tattoos are, and you never really look too deep into it. Um, so my episode that I did, I was talking about how these people could be connected to the Nephilim, and
Yep.
how you talk about the Nephilim walking Earth, and
Mhm.
my conclusion was that they do want worship. If
Mhm.
they were against God, at some point they would want to be worshipped like God is.
Mhm.
Now, I know that you look at this a little differently, right? But we're kind of coming to the same conclusion. So they're demanding to be worshipped. Do you think that they're doing it through these people who society looks up to as stars, as people to look up to?
Mhm.
Are they pairing themselves or connecting themselves to these people? And
Yeah.
the way that those stars are worshipped, this species, demons, whatever, are vicariously also being worshipped through that process.
I do believe that's the case. And I think that they're also creating profits out of abductees.
Hmm.
When you start to look at a hierarchy, right, and thinking, okay, If I wanted to contact a certain species, who do I go to? Well, anybody in their mind, they're going to think, okay, in ufology, we're going to go to this one abductee. As a matter of fact, that abductee will say, if you want to contact them, you got to go through me.
Hmm.
It is its own priesthood. It's creating its own priesthood with its own manifestations and, mind you, with its own altars. And this gets back to, again, like what model was the most correct? Like Albert K. Bender thought these were all extraterrestrials and actually built an altar to them. They showed up. They showed up.
Really?
Okay, again, why are we building altars to aliens? What's going on? And that's not a one-off, by the way. I've had conversations, and I said this in many shows recently, where I've had conversations with ufologists who thought the same thing, right? They're secularists, they're maybe even atheists, I don't know. But they didn't believe these, they just thought, okay, I want to help improve and further the scientific method. So I'm going to go to this conference and I'm going to pursue this research, only to have dinner with these other high-ranking ufologists. And one night, one individual was like, oh, by the way, here's my altar to him. Wait a minute. Come on.
Yeah.
You're selling t-shirts at conferences about how they're extraterrestrial? Absolutely. They are extraterrestrial, by the way. Wink, wink. Here's my altar to them.
Hmm.
So whatever we're dealing with, again, it's been, I guess, it was best articulated by Kenneth Grant, the heir to Thelema, because we're right back at the occult.
Hmm.
So knowing that they do sigilize people through and through, whether they're extraterrestrial or whatever, there is an occult connection, and these bodies are going through the three stages of sigilization. And the problem is, again, getting back to some of the research like Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs, all these, when they get to these experiencers, if they have no background, not just in phenomenology, but in the occult, they're going to see burns and think, okay, that was some kind of experiment, or that was a medical device, not knowing that's Theban iconography, and that the body is between three stages of sigilization. And so sometimes in cases we'll get there, they're underneath the skin. Why? Because they're going through the three stages. So usually they're one of the three. And so, but the question is, okay, where did that tradition come from? It came from an earthly occultist. So what are we really dealing with here? Um, anyways, that's a whole nother show, buddy. I mean, I hate to do that because
No,
there's
no,
so
no,
much here,
no.
brother. So much
Yeah,
here.
no, there is a lot there, especially when you bring up, because I guess a lot of people, especially just, I don't even know what to call. I wouldn't even call it the Christian community. It's like, I call it, like, sometimes it's the tinfoil community, but it seems like they're onto something when they talk about UFOs or grays being demonic. Now, again, they're using language that you may think it's like a much deeper than that, but they're hitting on the mark. They're within
Right.
if there's a whole bullseye, they're within the whole board of it, where they're saying these things aren't from some other planet.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to believe that too. And you even hear Congress talking about interdimensional now. And as soon as I heard them talk about interdimensional, I'm like, okay. So the occult is constantly trying to access the interdimensional through
Yes,
ritual.
yes, yes.
So I'm like, this makes
Absolutely.
perfect sense. And then when I heard about C5S, CS, what is it? C?
C5,
Yeah, yeah.
C5. Yeah.
When I heard about that, I was like, well, that's just a seance. I'm like, you're sitting around. It's a
Seance in the
ritual.
sky.
Yeah, it's just a seance that you're having.
It's full of lies. And at first, what I started noticing this about 6 years ago. My mentor and some of my colleagues have noticed this far, far before that, where there was an evolution of the phenomenon. Here's why. Okay. The phenomenon evolves according to our awareness of it. Okay. It'll
Mhm.
constantly change archetypes until it gets what it wants. So this is why, again, yeah, okay, it's demons yesterday. Crowley said this, by the way. It's demons today. Tomorrow they'll be called something else. And to take it a step further, if I may, Kenneth Grant, the heir to Thelema, he articulated it in the best way I've seen thus far, where he said, yes, he said, in times past, people have prayed to the divine. This is what we're dealing with. Oh, the old gods. Oh, pray. Okay. And then he said, but in the time will come that they will now be praying to NHI. What? Now, he goes through the whole spiel about, okay, there's an evolution taking place in the occult and
What does
how the
NHI
phenomenon,
stand for? Sorry.
non-human intelligence. So, right, you see where I'm going? You see where he's
Yeah,
going. Now,
yeah.
here's what's crazy, and our government knows this. Um, where he highlights that aspect of the phenomenon and says, okay, we in the occult know this. Not just okay, I'm not talking about somebody just getting started. I'm talking about adepts, right? Mages, right? The initiates. They know this. And Kenneth Grant said this. It's incredible. He said, yeah, by the way, in the midst of the evolution of going from the divine to NHI, we have their sigils.
Hmm.
What? Yeah, Kenneth Grant said this, we are in possession of their sigils. Now that takes it from the demonic realm to the realm of the practitioner,
Yeah.
which means, right? Which means that these aren't, again, horns and hooves, whatever this species is, they're performing their rituals on people. Because and that's why, okay, you have Kenneth Grant saying their sigils. Then we have actual cases of it where it's like, oh, yeah, you were taken by an NHI. And if you pulled out the quote from Kenneth Grant, like, yeah, you were taken by an extraterrestrial. Yeah. Well, they said this is going to happen. They knew it because they're in contact with these entities. And even furthermore, they knew that they were going to be putting their sigils on your body. That's where the research is right now. And it is dark. The phenomenon doesn't want this stuff out. It wants, again, it will interfere, it'll silence, it'll threaten. And I've had it, my colleagues have had it. But whatever we're dealing with, it is unquantifiable, at least from my perspective. If it's a spirit, it's not inseminating a woman. If it's corporeal, how can it walk through walls? So what
Mhm.
this does appear to be, again, is an esoteric quality within the sorcerer, where he can divide himself into two. He can split himself into two, where he is outside of his body. That can walk through a wall, but he can also inseminate a woman. I think that's what we're dealing with.
So
Even
you said
to a
there's a league of people who are doing
Yes,
this,
yes, 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 and I believe that they're very ancient.
and you believe that they're ancient. So do you like we're talking about a sorcerer splitting themselves into two, right? So when we talk about
Leaving
like
their own body.
yeah, we talk about
Yes,
astral
yes.
projection, that kind of makes sense. But if you believe that they're ancient, then wouldn't their physical body have to be like what, thousands of years old?
No. Again, no, the okay, so in order to get to that research, we would have to go through the bloodline and origins of possession. When people think of possession, they think of The Conjuring or The Exorcist.
Hmm.
They don't think of anthropology. So James Frazier, in his book The Golden Bow, talks about the origins of possession long before Catholicism kind of said, okay, yeah, this is horns and hooves. He talks about how, again, that practitioners before their body would die, they would astrally project or leave their bodies and they would possess someone else.
Oh, you're talking about like Chucky. That's like the story of
Chucky.
Chucky.
Yes. So right, exactly right. Exactly right. So then possession would not just be the relocation of consciousness, it would be the replication of life.
Wow.
It
Huh.
would be to, right, extend their own existence. Now, what would you say if I told you we've had cases of possession and pregnancy at the same time, where the same demon that possessed the woman impregnated her at the same time? Now, let me take it a step further. Possession to us is pregnancy to them. Okay. What do you mean, Nathaniel? Unpack that for us. I will. All right. Glad you asked. No, let me go here for a second. The end of the 16th century, we had cases, again, where entities were visiting women in the middle of the night. The same phenomenology, right?
Yeah.
We're going to induce them in a dreamlike state. We're going to hover directly over them, by the way. And I've had cases like that where the experiencer is, he's hovering over top of me right now. What is it? I can't tell what it is. I can't see its face. It's very strange stuff. But anyways, we're in the middle of the night. They're being accosted, assaulted by an entity that's hovering directly over them. They copulate. And the woman wakes up the next day thinking, okay, that was just a nightmare. It's just a dream demon. No big deal. Only to find out later on when they're at work and washing and everything that there are bruises and marks,
Hmm.
sigils on their bodies
Yeah.
that directly correlate with what they thought was just a nightmare. Now,
You know, yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. But I
it
have something
happened.
to bring up to you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So after that, next thing you know, they start having like symptoms of schizophrenia. and languages start coming out of them where
Hmm.
something that was in them had a different language preference. Again, a symptom of possession, to where their mouths weren't moving, but as one exorcist said, they use us as wind-like instruments, to where they will possess and use us, our cavity, to amplify their own voices. And so, sure enough, the entity that had accosted them is now commandeering them as an avatar. So they go to present. Now, there was approximately a dozen or so women that suffered this in the 16th century, specifically in a village in Israel called Safdi. They present themselves to the exorcist, the rabbi. And the rabbi's there with physicians. Do you think this woman's crazy? Like, what's going on? I don't know. She seems pretty all that. She seems pretty, good on that area. Like, what's going on though? As they're communicating with the entity, they start looking at the woman, and they're like, "Okay, are you pregnant at all?" No, you're not. No, I've never been with a man. Or, right? Has it been recent? I'm not
Yeah.
pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we're asking. They had conversations like, okay, we're asking because you're showing.
Yeah.
So they perform what's called the Lavouche method, where they put the thumb on the wrist. They found two heartbeats in one body and two pulses in one body, all of which was hers. Why is a different heartbeat in your body? Why is it? That's when they realized, wait a minute. Did you have a dream, demon? Did you copulate with anything in your nightmare? Well, matter of fact, right, a month or so ago, I had a dream. It was a really bad dream. I just thought it was a dream, not realizing, no, it wasn't. That was an entity. That,
This is terrible because this is like some of people's most favorite dreams, or
oh,
where we get to do this kind of
funny.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe the conversation, like the emails I've received in the past. They were like, well, I don't like it. It's like, well, all right. It's strange, Um, what was wild was, again, you have these exorcists conversing with each other, and they came to a startling conclusion that redefined and recontextualized all of hybridism.
Hmm.
And that was that this woman was not just possessed by the entity, she was pregnant by it. And that she was not just pregnant by the entity, she was pregnant with it.
Now, this when I heard that, I
Mhm.
heard a clip where you're talking about this,
Yeah.
and the first thing that came to mind. Now, have you heard about RFK? He had a running mate, Nicole Shanahan. So I
Mhm.
believe that's how you say her name. She was going to Burning Man for years. I think about 10 years, 8 or 10 years. She kept going to Burning Man. It was a thing she liked to do. But
Mhm.
now she's having a change of heart, changing her life. And she realizes that Burning Man is rather demonic. She wrote a whole
Mm.
breakdown of it on X, and she was talking about
Yeah.
how this whole thing is demonic and they're burning this effigy and it's a man and this and that. And then I'm looking into it because I'm building an episode because I wanted to do an
Mhm.
episode on that. And then while I'm doing my research, I hear this clip of you saying exactly what you said. And then
Mhm.
I see at Burning Man that somebody actually passed away and it wasn't
Yeah.
at their own hands. So
Mhm.
as this effigy is being lit up, thinking about
Mhm.
like ritual type stuff, because that's really what it is at Burning Man, right? Massive ritual. As they're burning this thing, somebody is being forced to pass away. Okay.
Mhm.
And at that exact time, a woman who had no signs at all of being pregnant goes into labor.
Mhm.
None, none, zero, nothing, no showing, no nothing, goes into labor. As soon as I saw those three things and connected that, I was like, oh, I have to talk to this guy about this. Like, this is the only guy that's gonna understand this.
Oh, yes, possession and pregnancy, my friend. And I think that's what we're dealing with. But okay, I got to a point in my research where I kept seeing these cases,
But hold on,
right?
like with that
Yeah.
case, do you think that is do you think it how has something to do with that? Is there some kind of ritual going on for that to happen
Mhm.
to that woman at the exact same time as an effigy is being lit up
And then
and a bunch
somebody
of
is
people are
unalived.
praising
Yeah.
it, somebody's unalived, and then that happening all at the same time?
It appears to be. I would want to research it further, because that would be another monumental case where we could potentially see more pathology. But yeah, absolutely. You
Wow.
know, this again, when you're dealing with incubi cases, the evidence does not suggest demons at all, right? And this is again not to beat a dead horse, but early on in the interview, I kind of said, right, there was a fork in the field. I was like, okay, what is this? Here's why. Number one, Father Sinister of Amino was going into homes within an hour of these entities manifesting in the room. And he was interviewing these experiencers, and the experiencer would say a lot of things like modern abductees do. Like, okay, yeah, I don't know what this is, but it left secretions and excretions on my body. We've had that with Betty Hill, right?
Wait, Betty Hill had that? I didn't
Yeah,
realize that.
Betty and yeah, in the Betty Barney Hill case study, absolutely. She had secretions left on her dress. And
Really?
that's absolutely so that same phenomenon happened with incubi literature and incubi cases where again Sinistrari's there and he's like, okay, what happened to you? And you know, the woman obviously is terrified, she's shaking, she's crying. I don't know what it was. Again, it's unquantifiable, but it had a body, and I could barely see it, but we copulated, and I don't know what to do. And so Sinistra Amino realized, like, wait a minute, again, there's a problem with the model. Demons do not have bodies, they have their spirits. Even in like the Nephilim theory, these are spirits that do not have bodies. And so he was he's wrestling with the mythology of it all. And finally, he came to the conclusion, as I have, that it had to be physical because secretions proved its corporeality. It had a body. And so when I got into this stuff, I said, okay, that's interesting. And check that box. Okay, let's dive deeper. And sure enough, remember when I said they had sigils on experiencers, abductees? They're the end result of a successful ritual.
Yeah.
Well, Sinistrata of Amino started looking at these victims, and some of them have actually died. And so the husband or the family say, okay, look, you know, we've called a physician in to do an autopsy or someone looking at the body. But Father Sinistrari, we don't know what this is. We don't want to touch it. We need your assistance. And so here comes Father Sinistrari of Amino. And so he's looking at the body. And they started finding sigils on the bodies of incubi victims, under the armpits, right? Inside the leg, underneath their eyelids. Peeling back the eyelid, the same entity that had copulated with them had sigilized them. That is an occultist. That
But
is called chaos magic.
true. Interesting. Because that's I don't know if he practices chaos magic, but his podcast is called The Order of Chaos, and he's a witch.
Yeah.
That's like he likes that type of stuff, I guess. Maybe not that type of stuff. We had a very interesting conversation, but just revealing things as you're talking. But here's the thing: when you're talking about what's going on, when we talk about demons and what we textbookly know demons to be like, and then you're telling me about these practitioners and the things that they're doing to people.
Yeah.
At what point, I guess the difference is they shouldn't have bodies versus non-bodies, because the behavior on both sides seems demonic. It doesn't seem like these people are operating in a very moral way whatsoever.
Again, right. That is behavior and origin, right? Form and function, that kind of thing. And so, yes, I would say absolutely what they did was demonic, but not in the sense of their origin. Now, again, the rituals they're performing, not really demonic. These, again, that's earthly occultism. Matter of fact, the 3 stages of sigilization did come from a demon. It came from Austin Osman Spar. So what are we really dealing with here? Right.
But didn't the
first
grimoire have some kind of sigil in it? I forget, because I was studying Led Zeppelin, and I believe it was Jimmy Page. He was very into sigils himself. He made each band member have a sigil. One of them opted out and said, just make mine the Holy Trinity, because he didn't want anything to do with what they were doing. But it said that his sigil that he used, that he would put on his clothing from head to toe, mind you, exactly like you were saying with the person, that he would put on his robes and his clothing. They said it had some connection to like one of the first grimoires that had something to do with Satan. So
of course,
wouldn't like that sigil has origins that are very, very, very old, like way past well, I shouldn't actually say this, but I think way past Austin.
Well, the problem is, again, the idea of the sigils to call upon a demon, not for the demon to call upon itself. That's the
Hmm.
distinction. Now,
Okay.
again, that's why we're looking at the fact that, again, when you look at everything, you put it on, just put it on a blank piece of paper. It has a body. It's performing earthly occultism. It's again, it appears to me, at least, when you have secretions in addition to that sigils at the same time, and then you also have possession and pregnancy at the same time,
Hmm.
it looks like what we're dealing with is a ritual. And to that point, I have it behind me in my library.
What's
It's
that?
called the Ultimate Black Mass, where an adept, before he dies, he will inseminate a woman of his choosing. That's your incubus,
Okay, okay.
right? Then he will okay, so she's pregnant, and then he will dispossess his own body and implant his consciousness in the new body.
So when you
And
say they're ancient, that's how they're moving and
it's
living forever.
necronetic, absolutely necronetics. And so that's why, again, it's self-replication. It's not just replication of a species itself. I'm
Now,
replicating myself.
yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. So now, if we go into the rabbit hole of what is 20, it's in 2025,
Yeah.
um, huh, could this species that is in the unseen, doing this type of thing,
Mhm.
could they, just like with Jack Parsons, just like
Yeah.
with Aleister Crowley, just like with Nikola Tesla, could they be giving the people of today the ability, the talent, the knowledge to create AI and robots to put themselves into those beings so they don't have to
Yeah.
do this replicating thing anymore and they could just live forever?
Yes, I think again now we're getting into the depths of necronetics, which is my field. I created necromancy and genetics, which is what I think they're doing. The problem is that we're looking at, again, if you're dealing with an occultist who's wanting a new body to inhabit, the pathology and victimology was incomplete for a certain amount of time. So what you would have female possession in a male, or male in female possession, where the avatar did not match the gender.
Mhm.
So what you started having again, where it's crazy, but you had the desire to where the body had to mirror the apparition it was in. Now let's take it back deep, deep, deep in antiquity. So now we're getting into hybridism as we know it, but the very earliest form of hybridism was in necromancy. So in biblical antiquity, we had a term called the Uv. It was spelled O-B, Uv. And it was a borrowed loan word from Canaanite legend and demonology, where Uv and Uva, father, Uva, we say it was Abba here, in the States, but it's Uva.
Mhm.
And so the Uv meant Uva, what it meant revenant, someone who's returning,
Mhm.
died, is returning. And
Yes.
it's not reincarnation, it's transmigration, by the way. And so in antiquity, for instance, the witch of Endor, not to get too biblical, the witch of Endor, the necromancer, she had an Uv. Now the Uv had three different definitions, according to T. Whitten Davies and Professor Esther Amori. It was a device implanted in the mouth of the necromancer. It was designed to amplify the voice of the returning entity. That's number one. Number two, the Uv or Uva was the material image of the entity that's returning. It's this.
Yeah.
Number three, it's the entity itself. So you have the entity, the material image of the entity, and then you have a device that's designed to amplify its presence in this dimension. Now, that was used again to help whatever these entities are to return into this world to prolong their existence. What I call the disability of being without being a being. So they wanted a form to possess, right? But that form had to look like the spirit possessing them.
Yeah, of course. You want
There we go.
you want to
Absolutely.
match, right? You want to match up
Right.
properly.
Right. So what they did, this is what I'm this is Necronetics, my theory. It's just a theory, guys. So bear with me.
Mhm.
But what they started to do is they started making statues in the image of the entity that was within them. We would see that as mummification, a little bit of Egyptology there.
Mhm.
But we realized the entity wanted to possess an image, but the image wasn't just any image, it had to look like it. So then you had the entity possessing a statue, and we have that in Greek mythology through all literature. It's fascinating. Where the statue itself is talking. Why? It's the entity within it. So you have the entity, you have the image of the entity, then you have a device that's designed to amplify. Now, those are definitions that are
What's the
horizontal.
device?
It's just some kind of metallic device. Now, the first time we heard that, by the way, Colin, to go even deeper in antiquity, was in the Old Testament, in Mesopotamia as well, not just the Old Testament. But practitioners of the occult, the idolaters, they would take a small piece of metal, they would carve the name of that entity into it. The phenomenon would merge old memory with new matter. They would implant that underneath the tongue of a cadaver, and that was your first hybrid. Where now they're conversing with this cadaver, and the phenomenon is moving its mouth and communicating.
Yes, I had a conversation with I guess I just classify her as she seemed like a Christian mystic to me, but her
Mhm,
name was Gigi Young, and
mhm.
she was telling me about something they would do in ancient Egypt called the opening of the mouth,
Yeah, it's
where
called
they would
head magic.
yeah, they would
Yeah.
have a pharaoh or someone who's passed, they'd have him mummified and stood up and open their mouth, and then what they believed is that Pharaoh was so
Mhm.
powerful that he could re-descend, let's say, and then be in that and speak to them through that.
That's the Oov. That's the Oov.
Huh.
He's the
Interesting.
revenant, right? He's returning, coming down through an avatar.
Hmm.
And so I believe, again, that when we're dealing with the image of the entity, the biological image of the entity, and the possessing entity, and then something, a device that's designed to empower its influence in this dimension, now we start to see again the intention of hybridism, where it's creating the Oov. What is the hybrid? It is the material image of the entity possessing it.
Mm.
That's a replica of life. What's real is the entity possessing it. And so I believe, again, if you look at all definitions horizontally and say, okay, it's the biological avatar and it's the entity, both of them look like each other, by the way. And then you see, again, it's the device. I think that they turned all of those definitions into one entity, collapsed them into one avatar. And now we have Necronetics, the self replication of species. That's the fetus. It's the biological avatar of the revenant, and it is the entity possessing it. And now it's the device that it's using to communicate in this dimension. Here's why I say that. In these case studies where you have possession and pregnancy at the same time, that's occurring. What's the pregnancy about? That's the avatar. What's the possession about? That's the consciousness.
Mm.
That's the Oov. Now, in these particular case studies, mind you, Softy Israel, 16th century, they're testing it. We have two pulses in one body, possession and pregnancy. When the exorcism was successful, the phenomenon took both the child and the consciousness at the same time. Next day, it's called the missing fetus syndrome,
Do
both
you
of
think
which were
do you
gone.
think that a regular person could do what you're talking about
No,
by
not at
mistake?
all. Absolutely not.
Like I only say that because there are so many encounters of people being like,
Mhm.
I was this person, and then all of a sudden they
Yeah.
start well, a kid, a little kid that's like 3 starts telling you about, their great grandfather or their grandfather, and it's things that they shouldn't know and parts that they shouldn't know. I know they could be being whispered to in a certain
Yeah.
sense, but it just came to mind as I'm listening to you talk about this. It's very interesting, man. Very interesting stuff.
It's research at least. And again, getting back to the necronetics aspect of it, I started realizing that I keep seeing the same ingredients in the same cases.
I actually have to ask you a question about this
Yeah.
whole thing. Could the Nephilim not do something like this? Would they not be powerful enough to do something like this at all, or no? In
Yes.
in, in what you think?
Yes. Now, again, to unpack that, even in Jewish demonology, we have the Shadim.
Okay.
But what is the Shadim?
Mhm.
That's an Akkadian loan word, Seidu. What were Seidu? Divinized ancestors.
Hmm.
Consciousness,
Hmm.
again. But can consciousness replicate without a body? No. It has to have a new body to replicate the other body, right? So that's where possession begins, according to Necronetics, where I possess one to replicate another and then take that body. So it's literally, again, it's not reincarnation, it's leaving one body possessing another. It's
Mhm.
transmigration. But to
Okay.
your point, this again, if we have to get back into the mythology of the Nephilim, there's a reason why their model it's incomplete. Demons do not have seed, right? If they're spirits, right? Okay, yeah, the fathers are they're in chains in darkness. The other spirits are disembodied and wandering in the earth. Okay,
Yes.
sure. Then right, that's what I'm saying. Then we must be dealing with something else.
Yeah, something else. Also, I'd love to just examine this because I always think of Hollywood, and I've talked
Yeah.
about this before, where you're talking about them wanting the body to match the
Mhm.
face or what wanting to match. And it's very interesting that you say that because whatever species this is that you're talking about,
Right.
I noticed that in Hollywood, for some reason, and it's not everybody, but it's a lot of them,
Mhm.
they tend to over time, and we this is what we do in our mind in the regular world with what we know. We
Mhm.
say they just took the plastic surgery too far. Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
And then we look at it sometimes and we go, "Why would they do that?" Like, it's so much, it's so apparent, they look so different. Why would they
Yeah.
do that? And I am again, I know from my research from the time I was younger that they are playing around with these realms. They are connecting to these realms. They are having electric seances where they're putting certain whether it's sigils or symbols on
Mhm.
records back in the day of records. They're doing all sorts of things like this. Could they be aligned with whatever this species is? And as time
Mhm.
goes on, they are changing the way they look because the species, the demon, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
it's gaining more control over them. So now they're becoming to look like it because it's not
Mhm.
just that they all look different, like they all look very different from what they once looked. They all have the same look. Whether
Yes.
it's little Kim, who's a black woman who now looks like it's just wild the way she looks now. Madonna, for some reason, looks like her. If you
Mhm.
look at the Jacksons who actually participated in their plastic surgery, they look the same type of nose, same type of like structure in the face. Could that be something there?
Yes, I'm going to answer your question with a story told by Fritz Kramer in his book, The Red Fez Possession in Africa. This will kind of check all the boxes. And so hopefully people can read between the lines because it's fascinating.
Mhm.
But he's in Africa and he's given a tour and everything. And finally he goes into this circle and they have this priest who is, he's dancing and everything and around the fire and they're performing these clapping and everything. And this priest all of a sudden whips out a rock, a very sharp rock. He's starting to cut him.
Mm.
He's cutting him. Finally, he's bleeding and stuff. And that's when Fritz Kramer realized, like, wait a minute, he's not even cutting his flesh; he's cutting scarred flesh, where the scars of past cutting, right, had kind of solidified, and now he's scratching those, and that's where the and so finally, after a while, he's like, that guy doesn't even look human anymore. Like he has destroyed his body.
Hmm.
What's going on? And one of the guy that gave him the tour said, well, he's possessed by an ancestor, and the ancestor's making him in its image. He's
Wow.
cutting the flesh to tailor the avatar, dare I say the oov,
Hmm.
to the entity possessing it.
Hmm.
Again, matching apparitions with the body. Possession, consciousness, pregnancy, avatar. Both of those have to match.
Yeah.
And so it's dangerous. Um, and there's many directions we can go with that, my friend. But whatever we're dealing with, again, this is why people have confused it. Well, all right, sure, yeah, maybe they are demonic. Again, I'm open to everything at this point, but the data I and my colleagues have collected says that we're at least, even though those things may be true, right?
Mhm.
Leave it open, leave the door open. There's at least something else out there that's
Yes.
replicating its own species, and that's where Necronetics is trying to come to the fore.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I definitely understand that. I mean, even as you're saying it, like obviously it's I mean, I was gonna say it goes against my thinking, but it's not even within my thinking because I didn't know any of what you said beforehand. I
Mhm.
had glimpses of it in my own theories, but that would make sense. And it seems like it wouldn't be an either or type of I think it would have like I think there could be both going on, especially with
Mhm.
certain behaviors that we're seeing
Yeah.
in people who don't know about possession, don't know about
Well,
how these familiars can really get a hold of you.
yes, yes. And I believe I was kind of diving into this rabbit hole before, but I kind of picture because my ADHD kicked in, unfortunately. But dealing with the Shadim, again, these are Akkadian, that's an Akkadian loan word for Sadu. What were they? Deceased ancestors that were divinized. Okay.
Mm.
Right. They transcended or ascended, whatever, in their tradition, and they became mediators. And so that, right? Oh, that's demon in Hebrew theology. The same thing with Rephaim, okay? Like the very first time we heard of Rephaim was not the term Rephaim, it was Repiumai, and they were found in ritual bowls in Ugaritic folklore,
I've never
right?
heard that term before.
Oh,
So
yes, absolutely. Repiumai. Rapiumai, Repiumai. But again, what happened was these people were experiencing some kind of paranormal activity or malevolent haunting. And so they would go and they would pray. And first of all, they would perform a ritual. They would carve, this prayer. And again, this is in what's called material culture or archaeology, where, to the Repiumai, what, right? And what is that? Well, of course, we have the definition in the ritual bowls. They believe that Repiumai were the deceased ancestors.
mhm.
Now, this is why in the Old Testament, Rephaim was kind of an exchangeable word for the deceased. So, what actually came back in Genesis 6? Men of renown,
Yes.
or dare I say, the fallen angels? Okay, what's fallen about an angel? What's angelic about the fallen? What were they trying to describe? Again, they were trying to quantify an event they experienced. What was it? Well, okay, if you want to go there, like not you, but I'm saying if they want to go back to the Ugarit again, because they also have a term for the angelic before Greek mythology kicked in, and that was malakuma.
Hmm. Never
Same
heard of that.
thing. Right. Now, what was malakuma to them? Divinized ancestors. Consciousness.
Ah,
Consciousness. Just like, right again, repiumai. Consciousness. Now, that's why. Okay, so then you go into Hebrew theology again because they were nomadic people. They also traversed the land. They said, okay, that kind of sounds like what we're dealing with here. Thank you. Boop, Rephaim, right? And what is that? Is that Shadim or Sadu? I don't know. There's some Akkadian mythology and folklore coming into our world. Okay, what that looks like? That looks like Shadim. Shadim. Okay, Shadim.
Wow.
What are we dealing with? Again, this potential within the human species, even in angelology, malakuma, malakim, you have a specific, again, the bloodline of their theory and their belief system is found in the New Testament. When Apostle Peter was supposed to have been martyred, his family thinks he's dead, but he's knocking on their door. They look through the peephole. They say, hey, look, it's Peter. No, they said it's Peter's angel.
Mm.
Why? Because there were people in the New Testament that believe that. I'm not saying it's the formal theology, the angelology of the New Testament. I'm saying they believe that.
Mhm.
Why? Because they believed it was consciousness out of body, and it appeared to be Peter. So what are we dealing with here? Again, even the exorcistic right, Colin, is rooted in what's called the open vessel law. It's found in the book of Numbers, where when a priest goes in a home or let's say this, if you're at a house and at that particular time in history, you preserved all of your goods in pottery. If you wanted to preserve them even more from air or pollution, you would close the pottery to protect it. Now, the idea was that if you went into a house and there was a corpse, you would tell the family would know, oh my God, we don't want the stench, uncleanness of the air to pollute our food. That's an open vessel. And so they implemented what's called the open vessel law. In the event that there's a corpse, go in there, close all your pottery so that it doesn't pollute, destroy your food. That's weird. It's nasty. It's gross.
Yeah.
That became what's called the open vessel law. Now, just as they were afraid that the body in the house would pollute that open vessel where the food was, they transferred that to now we are the open vessel that can be polluted by consciousness. And so then comes, it's called the open vessel, then comes the exorcistic rite. And that, again, that's why there are two arguments. Demonology, are we dealing with something that's so formerly human? And is it possible that the soul of a man is made from the flesh of a god? That there's some kind of tangible constitution to it? And that's getting its whole other show, brother. But yeah, that's more along the lines of where they were having this kind of intellectual discussion. What is it? Now, what they did not say was that a spirit can inseminate a woman and germinate and gestate a fetus. Whatever that is, again, it goes back to two rituals. Number one, the first one's found in the Gold Bow by James Fraser. It's the Red Rite. The second one is the Ultimate Black Mass. The Ultimate Black Mass kind of put all the pieces together for me because in my research, I realized again that I was encountering the ingredients of the same recipe, which was inducing the woman into a dreamlike state, consummating, impregnation, possession, and then removing the fetus and the consciousness at the same time. You know where that is? It's called the Ultimate Black Mass. It's an adept, a sorcerer, who's about to die, but before he dies and he's still able to, he will inseminate a woman.
Yeah.
Hover over the fetus and actually tell the fetus, this is not my body. It will possess that fetus. And then, wow, we have possession and pregnancy in the same case. By the way, occurred by virtue of an incubus, which, by the way, induced them into a dreamlike state. It explains at least a lot.
Yeah. I mean, as you go through it, that's very, very interesting. I wonder, as you're talking, I'm like, I'm sure you know, like, there's no reference to anything like that in like the Quran or the Torah or the nothing.
Again, jinn are made of smokeless fire, but they can procreate.
They can. Yeah. I think I've heard somebody.
Yeah.
I've heard this with also Greys as well. I heard a story. Well, there's an artist who's constantly painting it. I forget what his name is, but he says he had an experience with a Grey where they, for sake, I love the word that you use. They copulate.
Well, Colin, I got to tell you this, dude. I've had so many shows to where I wasn't allowed to say one thing. You know what I mean? Not that I would be dirty or anything like that, but even then, you wouldn't be allowed to say, create some other word to go around it. So
exactly.
Sorry,
but yeah. Like he said that it was a female Grey. They did the thing, and then the Grey would come back periodically and show him the hybrid children. And he claims that he has this experience, and for decades he's been painting about it. Like, I mean, maybe in the first few years you can be like, oh, this guy's just nuts, but it's like decades later he's still painting it, he's still showing the paintings, talking about his experience, and his story hasn't changed whatsoever. There was also something very similar, same type of thing with when I was reading about the jinn, where someone had an experience, again, copulated, and then the jinn was like, I'm taking the jinn hybrid, this woman jinn, and was like, I'm going back to where I'm from. This is where we're going. You're not going to see them again. And that was it. And then those are the only two instances I've heard, but it's just it's one of the more wild things that you hear about.
It is.
Not
I
wild to
can.
you, obviously, because you're you're
Yeah, I know.
wild to me in just my readings. I was like, huh. You know what? I want to ask you some like tangible things. Now, my questions are written with demon, so we don't
Mhm.
have to, I'm not dispelling what you're saying. I just had them
No.
pre-written already. So when it comes to demons, they can actually I heard you talk about trauma being a portal and
Yeah.
also that they can feed on fear. This is something I've known that they feed
Mhm.
on the lower feelings, the fear, the anger, the jealousy, things of
Mhm.
that nature.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's not in the sense of loosh, at least. The entity I encountered in my youth, it, it first manifested as a full-bodied apparition of a little girl, and I was little myself. I was only about 8 or 9 years old when this happened. That we moved into a new house, and all hell broke loose. But the phenomenon went from a full-bodied apparition to a cloud hovering in the corner of my room. To this day, my mother will still remind me of stuff that I forgot. Either I hid it, pushed it so down far into my body, my mind, or I'm like, I didn't remember it. But my mother, about a year ago, was like, remember when you told me that there was a witch that walked into your room at night? I'm like, I have no idea. I blocked it out. But my point is that what this entity would do, or the phenomenon would do, like I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would hear a full blown conversation going on above my head. And it's called direct voice phenomena. So in parapsychology, we have EVP, electronic voice phenomena. That's when you capture it on, technology. This was directly to me.
Mhm.
And so I realized like whenever I would experience this entity, it would fill the room with fabricated fear. You could almost reach out and touch it. And I would start getting emotions and I would, walls are up. I don't know what this is. Colin, there were times when I would be induced into a looping nightmare where at the end of the nightmare, you should wake up. I wouldn't. I would start right back at the beginning of it.
Wow.
And this had happened 3 or 4 times. And it was very, and I don't want to get you demonetized. It's very dark what this individual did to himself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it would just get, it was all in black and white. Anyways, and I would wake up from that. My heart's pounding. I'm sweating profusely. I'm paralyzed. And I could feel this thing feeding off of it. And
Mm.
it was like projecting this terror. And then if I believed in it, if I embraced it, right, if I identified with it, it would almost feed off of that. And
Yes.
so that's why I say that, Paul Sinclair, a dear friend of mine in England, has also had that happen to him, where the only explanation we can come up with, based upon the terror the phenomenon caused us, is that it was feeding off of us. Like it was, again, the more we believed in it, the more fear we had, the stronger it became, and the
Mhm.
more it would pop off. And that's
Mhm.
why I think it sometimes they do that.
Wow. Wow, that's very interesting. Very, very interesting. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, funny enough, again, when I was talking
Yeah.
to I would call him a friend now. We had a long conversation, but he was
Mhm.
just talking about, in Islam, he was telling me about how there are three types of dreams. And he was talking about, being able to decipher and, how one dream is just like fragments of like your day, and another a dream is them trying to actually get to you get to
Yes.
you via. And then he said, I guess this kind of goes along with what you're talking about, giving it strength. He's like, when you have one of those dreams, he's like, you shouldn't even talk about it because that's what it wants. It wants you to talk about it, raise up
Same.
those emotions in you,
Right.
give that to somebody else, have both of you know that this is a thing that happened, and then it gets
Absolutely.
stronger based on that.
You're exactly right. And in fact, one of the Islamic exorcists used to ask, like, if a lady said, "Okay, I was possessed," one of the questions that qualified them for possession to help them understand whether they were or not was the following: "Have you had a dream recently about copulating with a man?"
Mm.
And then, right again, penetration led to possession, and that's what they realized. Like, yeah. So I think again that a lot of us have pieces to this puzzle. And again, I'm not saying I'm 100% right. That's ridiculous. And people go like Nathaniel knows everything. No, I'm just passionate about the data and the research. But I think that the evidence does suggest that whatever we're dealing with masquerades It's very good at masquerading.
Mhm.
And if we have proven, at least Barry and Steve have proven, that it takes 20, 25 seconds before the phenomenon starts to project reality upon you,
Hmm.
then can we really trust a lot of what we're seeing? Not what they're doing, but we're seeing.
Yeah.
And it's for that reason the phenomenon blinds us with our own vision. I am appearing to you as this individual because you're going to interpret that data and you're going to apply my image to my intentions. You're going to say, okay, because I'm your ex lover, oh, he's going to do the right things to me. He's going to treat me right. He's definitely not going to put sigils on my body.
You're
And
more
yet
accepting. Yeah, yeah,
you're
you're
more
more accepting.
accepting. It's
Yeah.
moderating behavior by virtue of the archetype.
Yeah, I've definitely had dreams where something was trying to trick me, and I
Yeah.
realized it a little bit. And yeah, I've experienced that where I kind of it's I don't know if I'm getting lucid or the dream's just playing out, but I kind of go like, "Who are you?" And it looks just like somebody I would know, but I'm
Mhm.
questioning who it is, and then what it actually is kind of comes out. And it's always like a very freaky experience when it happens. I've had it happen once in a dream with my own mother, and then
Mhm.
once with a friend, a very close friend. And I'm like, you're not, because they couldn't pull it off. They couldn't do it
Yeah.
properly for me
Oh, it's
enough.
huge.
Yeah.
Let me go in this direction, and this will kind of really illuminate the phenomenon for people. Whatever we're dealing with, again, some of it does rely on a program in a sense. I've worked with experiencers who were taken by cartoon characters, and right, well, that sure it can't be Archie, it's not Casper. What is it? And so I want to kind of clarify everything we're talking about in terms of hybridism is necronetics, right? So this
Mhm.
is may even be a separate phenomenon. I don't know, but this is other research I've been doing. So bear with me here. But yeah, the learning matrix here is it's often employed by the phenomenon. Like I said, this experiencer I had been working with had been taken as a young girl. They had been monitoring her fertility, and they were taking her as her favorite cartoon character. And she's like, Nathaniel, she said, it got to a point where they didn't show up for about 2 or 3 years, but that was when I hit puberty. And she's
Mhm.
like, so when it returned, she said the air is filled with an intelligent electricity. And I knew, oh my God, they're back. I prepared myself for what could take place. She said, next thing you know, here comes this cartoon character into my room. This is hilarious. And anyways, this individual is amazing, by the way. So shout out to her. But she's like, now I'm standing a lot taller now, and I'm looking
Of-
down at this entity,
Yeah.
thinking, this is insane. You're certainly not the cartoon character. And here's why. She no longer watched the
Of
cartoon.
course, she was older. You said
She
like
was
she's
sure.
like almost a
Right. Yeah.
teenager
Yeah.
now. Like,
Incredible, right? So what's going on here? The phenomenon's rendering an archetype in her presence as an interface.
yeah.
Now that entity starts to realize, uh-oh, she doesn't believe in this anymore. Oh my God. And this is one of the most amazing accounts I've heard. And she said that as at that point that she did believe in it. She's obviously questioning the whole scenario and kind of laughing, like in her mind, like, ha ha ha, this is stupid. And
Mhm.
then she said the entity leans in, gets right in her face. Its eyes expand and they start moving like this.
Mm.
And I said, well, like, what was happening? She goes, Nathaniel, I'm going to sound crazy if I haven't already. She said, but it was measuring my belief in its image.
Uh,
Why
yeah.
does belief matter?
Belief
It was
matters in everything, man. Everything,
exactly
right?
right. It's trying to update. So what it did, again, it realized I evolved with her to a certain point. She evolved beyond the archetype.
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
Yeah. It's like, who do I have to turn into? It tries to come back
Uh,
as Johnny Depp or
Abs-
something.
there we go. Yeah, I'm sure well, she might have liked that. I don't know. But
Yeah.
my thing is, that's a learning matrix. It evolved. It was at that point that it went out into the learning matrix, tried to download a new archetype as an interface. couldn't. And so it
Mm.
just disappeared.
That's interesting. So then when it came to you and your experience, I know you were
Mhm.
young, but
Yeah.
how did you get rid of that? Did you just not believe, or was it something similar to her? Or?
Well, I was smart enough, thank God, to know something was there.
Mhm.
But when I realized that my belief in the fear was projecting, when I realized that, like, I believed, number one, I knew something existed, but the second thing is, it's very important. I had to separate myself from the projected fear. I told myself, because what was happening, man, it's like I would stay up all night. I would go to school the next day, pass out of school,
Of
right?
course.
I haven't been to sleep 24 hours. And I started failing grades. It was just really, really bad moment in my life. But that's when I realized that it's okay to feel the fear. It's not okay to be afraid.
Mm,
And so
courage.
when it would project fear, I would build a wall and say, okay, just because I feel it doesn't mean I embrace it or I agree with it.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's really good.
So
I've been doing that recently myself. That's good.
yeah, you catch it. You catch the thought.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, I don't align with that. And so it would project this fabricated terror upon me. And after a while, I'd catch it. And I'd realize I would put up this kind of wall and I'd say, yeah, I'm feeling the fear you're projecting on me, but I'm not afraid of you. You're not going to manipulate me. And I cut it off and starved it. And intellectually, and I don't know if this was initiation. Some people are like Mr. Gillis, it
Yeah.
initiated you. I have no idea. Um, but I could tell you this, I've had cases where murders have taken place by virtue of possession. And I've been in the home where they had to cut up the carpet like an hour before I got there. And
Yeah.
even that entity did not feel as strong as the entity I encountered at 8 years old.
Wow.
It was very strange. Yeah. So, oh man, you want to do 2 hours? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, but
All right,
my
man.
longest one is, like, near 4 hour near
Oh my
5 hours,
God. All right.
actually.
I'm gonna get some food, buddy. But I hope that wasn't rude. I apologize if that was. I'm
No,
just
no,
very,
no.
very hungry. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, sir. So that's really what we're looking at. And again, it's not just demonology and all that. In ufology, again, if we're dealing with the phenomenon that can create a physiological construct, then all bets are off.
So then, again, I'm just trying to be tangible for anybody who, because
Yeah.
sometimes people feel like something's going on, then they watch
Yeah.
something like this, more things are revealed. So can they put thoughts in your head?
100%.
Okay, so they can put thoughts in your head.
So, yes, the idea here is these are not my thoughts. It's the same thing that happened to me in my youth. These are not my emotions.
Okay, okay. This, you know what? Funny enough, somebody I played an episode about astral projection, and a woman was talking about her experience of it. She was a witch who turned into a Christian. She was talking about her experience, but she was playing around with it. She said she did it a few times, but one time after it was done, she noticed her fingers turning black, but she kind of shook that off. I guess it was like
Mhm.
a mental kind of thing. But then she said that her thoughts were completely taken over. And she said they were terrible thoughts that she would never think. And it was just like all manner of just depravity and hatred type of thoughts just came upon her. And she had no idea where it was coming from. It really messed with her.
Yeah, we've also had that in C5, not to the extent of negative thoughts,
Mm,
but where they go through the stages of Stephen Greer's theory. Okay, you got to do this, this, this.
yeah.
And they would connect with the phenomenon and they would try to break away. They
Ah,
would try to disconnect from it, and the phenomenon would not allow them to. It had actually, right again, the pathogen of possession and hitchhiker effect or the hijacker effect. Uh-oh, what happened? Disappeared on me.
Jesus. So sorry about that. I don't know.
Wow. It's okay, bud.
My mouse has like this side button and I just hit it and I'm like, oh God. I'm like, can I just end
Colin got
everything?
abducted, everybody. He will be back right after these messages. It'll be
Sorry,
hilarious.
go
Colin,
ahead.
us we have like a bar, and this show is sponsored by
Yeah,
um
right.
yeah, Texas Longhorns and Steve Sarkeesian and Arch Manning. That'd be cool. Yeah, brother. So yeah, these are not my thoughts. And again, the hitchhiker effect will do that. Once the phenomenon fully connects, that's when you start to see its true pathology.
Mm.
And we've seen it everywhere. Skinwalker Ranch, Bigelow, I'll never go back. Why? Because it destroyed his family.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Exactly.
Even the skull experiment in the 1990s, once they controlled the room, they started to conjure these entities, and the true phenomenon manifested.
Mm.
Hundreds of beings were incarnating in that room. It
Yeah.
destroyed their lives. So
Man.
it's this, again, people don't understand that this is not Hollywood. And the sad part, I guess the saddest part about my work is when people see demonology or hear it, they think, okay, this is okay. We're going to sell a bunch of t-shirts.
Yeah.
And that's really it. It's like, that's not it at all. And they project that model of demonology upon what I do. And then it's sad.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad that I asked, because you took us all on a whole different space than what I thought, but still in the
Yeah.
realm of what I was thinking. Another question I have for you: what are some
Mhm.
signs that there is again, it's just I have it written, a demon
Yeah.
of sorts around you?
Language preference and attachment, primarily an attachment. If there's a secondary entity, if you feel watched, scratches. I've had cases where scratches appeared and they were in between, underneath the skin and on top of it, somewhere in there. You couldn't feel it.
Yeah,
Very strange. You could see it, but you couldn't feel it.
and feeling
Uh,
watched.
of course, yeah. So, yeah, of course, feeling watched, encountering things in your dreams. There are different sensory awarenesses where if you sense something, you smell something, it's not there. Now, again, supernatural abilities. Do you
Mm.
know things you shouldn't? How do you know that? Right? And gets back into, again, what we were talking about earlier about necronetics, where there have been cases of possession where the demoniac themselves start to dress like the entity within.
Mm. Interesting.
Where yeah, like literally. I remember this one woman that got possessed, and she lived in a haunted house, and just decided not to go to work one day. Went out and bought a dress from 100 years ago, put the dress on, changed her language to Old English, and starts asking the family, where are you old men at?
Wow.
Weird things like that. Why? Because Fritz Kramer, go right, Red
Mhm.
Fez, what is it doing? It's making that avatar in its image.
Wow.
I am nestling now in your body. It's your mouth, but it's my words. It's your eyes, but it's my vision.
Okay. All right. And then when it comes to the attachment,
Yeah.
how do they end up attaching to you? And how do you detach?
Well, I've had cases where, um, oh my God, where specifically, actually, I'll tell you two cases. One case is many years ago where I got a phone call at 2 in the morning from somebody that I have no idea how they got my number, but since I answered, right, it's
Mhm.
on. I'm like, okay, this is Nathaniel. Okay, Nathaniel. I'm like, okay, what's
Yeah.
going on? Well, what happened was he said that there's an entity visiting his daughter. So that's okay. How old is your daughter? He says she's 15 years old. I said, okay. I said, like, what is it doing? Is it say anything to her? Because like a lot of times these entities, even in the middle of the dream, will give away a name. I'm so and so,
Mm.
right? And then you kind of write that down, and then your other cases in the future look for that name. It's very interesting methodology. But what had happened was once we started talking to that daughter's mother, biological mother, which by the way, the husband and wife, they're separated, they're divorced. We talked to the mother and asked her, have you ever experienced anything like this? She said, absolutely, when I was
Mm.
her age.
Wow.
So it's trickling down the bloodline.
So this
And
is like a familiar. This is what familiars do, right? They stay with
yeah,
generation to generation.
I call them familials, but you're exactly right, Colin. Absolutely, brother. Yeah. Familiar and familial. Well, where it's stalking the familial bloodline. And it's not just that, like I had one case where, again, it was a husband and a wife this time, but the husband's emailing me and he's like, my wife has an attachment. She's always feeling watched. There was a time when he got home from work. This is one of those cases where like the entity's hovering directly above her. He walks into the bedroom and she's paralyzed, laying in bed. She can only talk. And he's like, baby, what's going on? And she said, it's hovering right over top of me right now. I cannot move. The husband couldn't see it. She could. But the point is, we started talking about, some of their history and everything. And I said, is it possible that you have a practitioner of the occult in your lineage and you don't know about it? Because what these beings will do, again, if you make a covenant with me, I may die, but you're going to go down the bloodline and demand it from somebody else. Now, I'm going to take that a step further. But that's what happened, actually. So, yeah, that's what happened, where she went down and got into her bloodline, asked a few questions. Sure enough, her great-grandfather was an occultist. And the entity had basically said, you are mine. You belong to me. Now, take it a step further. Gary Nolan's research now, again, because I take a more holistic approach to this thing, we know I could do this kind of research. But Dr. Gary Nolan has had cases where when the phenomenon is projecting a new reality or replica of reality or managing our perception of reality, it's tailoring it to the neurology of the experiencer to such a point where there are anomalies on the brain scans of the experiencer. So he'll go through one generation, Colin, right? One generation, say, okay, you're 60 years old. Yes, sir. Okay, can we do a brain scan? Sure. Okay, we found an anomaly on an area, on the part of your brain. And okay, have you seen the phenomenon? I've experienced it. Okay, that's interesting. Let's go down to the next generation, his son, right? 40, maybe 30, whatever, years old. Have you experienced the phenomenon? I have. Do you mind if we do a brain scan? Sure enough. Okay, same anomaly. All right, on the same part of the brain.
Wow.
This is going to blow. This is crazy. Now, here's the problem. Their paranormal experiences were perceived to be for them individually, right? Just like I would. The problem is when they got down to the third generation, much younger, they'd ask them, have you ever experienced the phenomenon? There's a difference here. I have never experienced the phenomenon. But they had the same anomaly in their brain scan. So just like the sigils change the physiology of the experiencer, so is also the phenomenon changing the neurology of the experiencer. Like a pathogenic possession, the interface event's not just designed for that person, it's entering the bloodline.
Wow. Wow, that is so wild. When you bring up sigils, I actually think of myself. At some point, there was something dark around me. I was playing around with a lot of new age stuff, and I was opening myself up quite a bit. And talking about some familiars, I was living in a room that my dad lived in when he was going through a dark period, right? And I used to very depressed, very sad all the time. And I had this symbol that I just randomly made. It was this weird symbol, and it kind of looked like it was maybe like it had a M in it, had a big M in it, and it had these like it was just like an odd symbol. And I would always say like, oh, this is like a symbol that represents like unity of self and like taking care of myself, depending on myself. And I was gonna get it tattooed on me. I was getting pulled to get this big tattoo, and I was gonna have that in the center of it. And I
What?
yeah,
Let
I
me.
just I pulled myself away from doing it because
Okay.
I didn't have the money, and then also I kind of moved away from the new age stuff,
Yeah.
and my life just changed for the better. But I always remember that symbol, like especially as I started hearing about sigils. I'm like, huh. I'm like, kind of looked like one. It was weird.
I'm gonna show you something, all right? And I've never showed this on a show before, but you mentioned it and I have to. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
See that M?
Eh, oh yeah. It's the two
Yeah.
red parts. That's
Yeah.
the beginning, and then yeah. Wow.
So we're finding these on people and testing them. And many of these are underneath the skin. But you're exactly right. That's when you said M, it brought it to my mind, and I'm thinking that's very possible. Very possible.
Yeah, it was something dark was happening to me as I was doing all that new age stuff. A lot of psychedelics, opening up myself to things that I just had no awareness to, right? I didn't have any
Mhm.
structure at all.
Yeah.
I was just doing like a little bit of everything all at once. And I even had I should actually tell you about this. I had an instance where I was sleeping and there was a huge presence on my head. First off, I
Mhm.
should tell you this because it's kind of similar to what you said. I used to have this, like, I used to go to sleep really late. So, like 2:30, 3 in the morning, I'd be in bed in this basement and I would always hear these creaks on the stairs.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard
And
that
it
too. It's
and it was the it was
nerve-wracking.
it was the same thing every night. Every
Mhm.
night. I would hear these creaks, and it would get to the point where I wasn't religious at all, and I would always
Mhm.
say, Jesus Christ, help me," like, "Jesus Christ, help me." Like, I would always, like, just be calling out to anything because I would get so scared, and then
Mhm.
usually I would just fall asleep. I would just fall asleep chanting that, just fall asleep, but I always felt like something was coming down the stairs, and then when it stopped, it felt like it got close,
Mhm.
but where it all came to a head was there was actually a time where I had this huge pressure on my head, and it was like this buzzing sound,
Mhm.
and I was asleep, but I guess I was kinda waking up, I don't know, and I got out of bed and
Mhm.
rolled off the bed because there was this huge, it felt like something was trying to force itself into my head,
Mhm.
and when I looked up, I was still in my bed. So it was like
What?
a projection of sorts. I was still in my bed and there was something on top of me, and it looked like a female, all black, slick
Yeah.
back, black hair, and it saw me, and then I was so scared, and I kinda tried to crawl away, and then I just woke up, and I was back in the bed, in my body, and that was, like, the scariest encounter I ever had.
That's crazy, man. Well,
Yeah, it was
I'm
very
glad
weird.
it's the scariest. I mean, not in the sense I'm glad you went through it, but I'm glad it didn't get worse. Well, brother,
No.
I gotta get out of here, man. I'm very hungry. I could talk to you for hours, Colin, honestly, and I would.
Yeah,
I
man.
got
We should do it again because I definitely
yes,
have
sir.
a bunch more questions. We got through
Yeah.
most of them, though. I'm surprised because I could tell by your other interviews, I'm like, "Oh, this guy knows how to tell a story." I'm like, "I'm gonna have to let this guy go off."
Well, man, you've been doing this for a long time, and it doesn't take away
Yeah,
from the research, but,
yeah.
yeah, buddy, I appreciate the invitation. Let me know when it goes up, and then we could do a round 2, and then I can answer more questions, and
Yeah,
we'll have a
yeah,
good
yeah.
time.
Like, definitely when the website gets up and running,
Yeah.
um, I definitely wanna have you back because why not? I mean, it would no, really, I mean, I always try to, the best my platform can, like, if I can
Mhm.
help at all, I would love to, and I love the fact that you're trying to do something on your own.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring, it's what I wanna do as well, like I was telling you, I would love to start up my own website so you don't have to worry about anybody, you know, telling you you can't say certain things.
Or
Um,
taking your research and then wanting all the rights to it, and then,
yeah,
I don't want that either. I don't want that either. So this is Parasymposia, and I'm going to be publishing all of my research on it. So I'll be doing lectures,
yeah,
Q&A sessions, articles. You can sign up for early access now. And here, like I said, again, we're going to be launching probably end of September or October.
yeah.
What we're trying to do now is again open it up to where you have a lot of like a lot of videos to watch, and not just one or two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. When I was telling you about Patreon, I was like, I should probably
Yeah.
get stuff up beforehand, but yeah, yeah. So you have that. Do you have a
Yep.
YouTube?
I do, bud. I do.
Let's
It's Nathaniel Gillis. It's under my name. And to be honest, it was abandoned, but I do have almost 5,000 subscribers, even though I abandoned it. And so
yeah,
what's going to happen is I'm going to be putting um, all of these videos, most just the videos, not like the other stuff, but the videos that are going to be on Parasymposia will be on the YouTube channel afterwards. So,
see
kind of,
everything else comes up. That's how, like, yeah, it's so important that you get your stuff up and going because it's like
absolutely, man.
I'm seeing through spaced out radio, the last transmission.
All
Uh,
kinds of it, yeah.
yeah, so there's all sorts of places you've been. I can't find yours. Oh, Nathaniel. I didn't write it properly. Oh, I'm that guy again. I
It's
messed up.
really, really bad. I mean, this was many years ago now. But yeah, man, I'm trying to get it up and running, and I'm excited for it to happen because I'm going to have other researchers on as well, and so we'll do interviews together and really, I guess, just discuss the phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So for now, it's the
Yeah.
website. What
Mhm.
else? What else do you have going on? Any books? You seem like a guy who has a book in
Yeah.
hand.
I've got many of them, in fact.
Yeah.
Um, I'm still formulating Necronetics. I mean, it's going to be a series of 3 books because I've got
Mhm,
to get through possession and pregnancy,
mhm.
and then go into it's just the theory itself, right? I had to create new terms for it because
Yeah.
I would try to articulate something. I had no language. And it's like, oh my God, what do I have to do? So I'm creating my own language system now. So it's a profound endeavor on my part, and it's taken a lot out of me. But other than that, man, that's it. And Colin, it's been a pleasure, man. It's
Yeah,
great to
you
be
as
on with
well.
you.
And
Let's keep in
again,
touch.
the second that the website goes live,
Yep.
let me know. We can come on. You can come on, do
Yeah.
this again, promote the website. 100%
Thank
down
you.
for that. And thank you so much for this talk.
Not
This
a
has
problem,
been
brother.
this is right up my alley. I don't know how other people look at you when you talk about this stuff, but for me,
No,
I'm like I'm zoned in. So
that's
let me
cool,
just
man.
end this here, guys.
Okay.
Nathaniel Gillis, please check him out. There's all sorts of stuff on YouTube, the website. You guys saw that. Links are going to be in the description. And we're out of here. What's going on, guys? That was a doozy of an episode. Nathaniel, oh man, I mean, when he broke down the fact that he was like, these are people who are taking their consciousness and their soul, whatever, and putting it into another body, into a baby, and then growing and living another lifetime, completely aware of their previous lifetime. And they've been doing this for decades and centuries and since biblical times. I was like, oh, this guy's into some stuff. Like this is man, just to say, this is what I want the podcast to be. Eventually, I would love for the channel to be me doing these type of interviews 4 or 5 times a week, just like Rogan does. That's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to be that type of channel doing these type of interviews. So please, if you enjoyed this, you got to comment, you got to like, subscribe, watch another one. I need the support when it comes to the content that doesn't have Joe Rogan in it. I need the support in order for me to hit the next phase of my plan to become a voice of my own who's interviewing people 4 or 5 times a week. That's what I'm looking to do. So if you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And let me know what you think of all of this. I'm definitely going to have Nathaniel on again. And I'm going to have someone else he suggested to me as well. What's his name? Steve Nira. I'll be having him on too soon. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm out.